Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. Everybody that's watching the Joe Gaither Show, wherever you're watching the Joe Gaither Show, on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. Of course, I am Joe Gaither. Duh, you are the listener, the viewer. You're watching us on YouTube. You're watching us on Facebook and on Twitter at Joe Gaither6 and at BamaCentral on those channels. You're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. You can find us at The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral on those outlets. We'd always appreciate you subscribing, rating, and reviewing this show right there on any of those outlets. And you can always participate in the show live when we are live on the social media outlets at Joe Gaither6. You can find us and send us your comments, questions, queries, and complaints. We're going to have a lot of fun. I don't think I have my right microphone selected. Nope, let's do that first. Let's do that. Boom. Now that might make me sound just a hair better, a tiny bit better. We're going to have a lot of fun this week. It's Christmas is behind us. We're on our way to New Year's. We have, 5 days away from the Rose Bowl. Alabama kicking off against Michigan, and we're all going to be all over that at BamaCentral.com. We're a proud part of the BamaCentral.com broadcasting network. Our friends Katie Wyndham, Austin Hannon, and Blake Byler are already out in California, and we will catch up with them in the coming days. We'll catch up with them when they get settled. They're out at Disneyland today, and congratulations. They're enjoying some park action. They're doing some media action. They're kind of doing some crisscross action with the Alabama football team, that maybe with a little bit of Michigan in there as well. So you want to follow at Katie Wyndham _ at Blake _ 45 Byler, I think is what it is. Byler 45. You guys know Blake's handle, and you know Austin's as well. You guys follow them for all your coverage at BamaCentral.com. So look, what are we going to do today? We're back home. I want to say thank you to everybody who watched our Christmas episode with my cousin James, everybody who took part in the comments, everybody who watched it and sent us great messages. Yeah, my cousin James adds a little bit of flavor, and I appreciate him joining us on the show on Monday. If you missed that, you can watch it on all the platforms I just mentioned. But it's Wednesday, and it's time to get back in action. It's time to put the holiday. It's time to get back on our horse and get ready for the Rose Bowl. Let's start with an award. Let's start with an award from today. The Maxwell Football Club announces the 2023 Shaun Alexander Freshman of the Year Award goes to your Alabama Crimson Tide safety, Caleb Downs. All right, Caleb Downs beats out several other players that I had not really heard of this year, is the obvious choice. And so what I wanted to think about, this is the second Alabama player to win this award. Obviously, it's named after Shaun Alexander and his great career that he had here at the Capstone, went on to the Seattle Seahawks, became an NFL MVP, and won a Super Bowl with the Seahawks. Did they win that Super Bowl? Yeah, I think they did win that. No, they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? They lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers in that Super Bowl. But Shaun Alexander, great career. And in 1996, he was a freshman, had over 500 yards rushing, had 6 or 7 touchdowns, and thus the Shaun Alexander Freshman of the Year Award is born. And 2 Alabama football players have won it since then. Will Anderson in 2020, the COVID year, and Caleb Downs this year in 2023. And so it makes me think, let's compare and contrast. Obviously, we all see what Will Anderson is doing in the NFL already, impacting the Houston Texans in a positive way. They are in the playoff picture after basically being in the top end of the draft last year. Obviously, they took C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson back-to-back. Will Anderson having a great year, and you all know what he meant to Alabama, a Butkus Award winner, former team captain. But in 2020, he was just a freshman out of Georgia, and he wins he becomes Alabama's first initial winner of the Shaun Alexander Freshman of the Year Award. And I want to know, which freshman season was better? Was it was it Will Anderson's, or was it Caleb Downs? Which defensive season was better? The interesting thing, both guys, 5-star freshmen out of Georgia, obviously different parts of Georgia, and didn't play together. Obviously, they didn't overlap here at the Capstone. But Will Anderson, he was named SEC All-Freshman for that 2020 season. You got to remember, this is the COVID season, so all 13 games includes the postseason. Will Anderson started all 13 games this year. In 2020, he started all 10 regular season games, and then the postseason games as well, the SEC championship game, and then 2 playoff games that we'll get into later on down the line, winning the national championship over Ohio State.
So he's a national champion in this year. He's SEC All Freshman. He starts 13 games. He's an SEC champion. He has 52 tackles, 10 and a half tackles for a loss, 7 sacks. He's third in the conference, fourth in the conference in sacks with 7 sacks and 1 forced fumble as a freshman. They win the national championship. Remember that. That's a big mark. You win the SEC championship. That obviously is a huge mark. Caleb Downs, on the flip side, 3 years later, here at the Capstone, you just watched him wrap up. He's already started 13 games. That includes a 12-game regular season and 1 SEC championship game, which he did win, helped Alabama win. In those 13 games, 99 tackles, which led Alabama and 4th in the conference. Led Alabama 4th in the conference, 3.5 tackles, 1 forced fumble, one fumble recovery, and 2 interceptions for Caleb Downs. So which season was better? Was it the edge rusher in 2020, the COVID-shortened season? Some of those numbers obviously don't stack up to Caleb Downs' numbers, but he hasn't played basically they played the same amount of the games, and Caleb Downs still gets 2 more games worth of statistics to add. But over 100 tackles, you can basically book it down that Caleb Downs will have before the season's over. He needs 1 more tackle. I believe that he's going to get 1 tackle in the Rose Bowl this coming up week. So he'll to get to 100 tackles. He's been incredible. I don't remember another freshman like it. I mean, honestly, you've got Will Anderson, and that's a pretty good mark. Jalen Hurts started as a freshman quarterback, and that's a pretty nice bar as well. And he had a great season as a freshman starting quarterback. So, it's hard to compare quarterback to safety. What other freshman could be out there that really had the impact that Caleb Downs had this season? Caleb Downs winning SEC newcomer and freshman of the year as well is on his resume. So I do think that Caleb did have a better season in 2023 than Will Anderson did in 2020. Now, it remains to be seen what will become of Caleb Downs, but if you take the last 13 games worth of evidence, you believe that you're going to see Alabama and Caleb Downs in at least 1, maybe 2 more games this year. So that brings him to 15 games. And then you throw another 14, 15 games in next year for a sophomore season, and another 14, 15 games the year after that. That's 30, 45 games worth of experience. Caleb Downs, oh my gosh, he has a chance to become maybe, you don't want to say Alabama's all-time great best defender ever, because Alabama's had some amazing defenders throughout the course of time, going back to Leroy Jordan, going back to Cornelius Bennett, Derek Thomas, going back throughout history. You've got great defenders all over the field in every single era. But Caleb Downs coming in as a freshman, playing a high-impact position. You got to remember, I mean, yeah, you can play edge rusher and you can rush the passer, and Will Anderson, you did a great job at it. You were amazing at it. But I think it's a little more simplistic to rush the passer, play defensive end, play the edge. Now, obviously, it's not as simplistic as I'm about to make it, or as I'm boiling it down to, whereas you only have a couple of simplistic reads where you're reading run versus pass. You're going to rush the outside lane. You've got a couple of good pass rushing moves. No, it's more complicated than that, but you're not really, I mean, Caleb Downs, all eyes are on you at the safety position. The safety position, you know how good or bad they are based on how good or bad the tackling was. You saw DeMarco Hitman Helms. I mean, sometimes the tackling wasn't so good the year prior. I mean, yeah, he'd come in and pop you. He'd come in and get a big old stick. But the tackling definitely improved with Caleb Downs playing safety this year, taking much better angles, bringing running backs down, playing the bubble screens very, very well. And really, Caleb Downs run filling and playing some of the quarterback read options. You go back and look at the Texas A&M game. I think, oh my gosh, I think Caleb Downs was the best defensive player on the field in the Texas A&M game. You think about the 2 interceptions that he had this year. Obviously, the first one against Mississippi State, he was SEC Player of the Week, Freshman of the Week against Mississippi State and MTSU. All right, he gets the interception against Mississippi State. The game's basically over. It basically ices the game. But against Texas A&M, you just had the Jalen Milroe interception. Jalen Milroe is throwing it down the field. I think the game's still tight at that point. Maybe Alabama's behind. You have the Jalen Milroe interception, and the next play, Caleb Downs jumps in and he trails a receiver, and he cuts in front of the ball, and he makes a great play to give Alabama possession right back, in which really built the momentum for the rest of the game. So Caleb Downs, honestly, I'm really looking forward to the next two years. I'm very happy that, from an Alabama perspective, that you're going to get at least 12 games next year, and the 12 games after that, you're going to get at least 24 more games of Caleb Downs, and hopefully the postseason, hopefully the execution and the teams do well, so the postseason play is in play as well, and we're going to be able to appreciate Caleb Downs a bit more from the Alabama fan base perspective and from the football perspective. I think he is a special specimen. I mean, not only was he fourth in the SEC in tackles, but he had 4 punt returns, and on those 4 punt returns, 87 yards and a touchdown. Sure, I know that one of the touchdown was against Chattanooga, wasn't it? But you have the ability. Every time he's got the ball in his hands, he's just a really high IQ player, and so we want to say a big old shout out to Caleb Downs winning the 2023 Shaun Alexander Freshman of the Year award. If you disagree, you want to say that Will Anderson had a better year. It was more impactful from the edge rusher position with his 7 sacks that year. Obviously, he helped Alabama win a national championship. You've got a huge bar that Caleb Downs still needs to be a part of this year. You got 2 more games. Hopefully, you at least got 1 more game from Caleb Downs' perspective, and hopefully he can put that national championship on his resume along with the Shaun Alexander Freshman of the Year award that he was awarded today. And you can read more about that at BamaCentral.com to find out the 4 or 5 guys that he defeated. A guy from Purdue, a guy from NC State, a guy from Miami, a bunch of guys that I haven't followed that much and haven't heard from that much, and maybe that is my myopic point of view looking directly at Alabama, but I think that Caleb Downs was the obvious choice, and so big ups to him winning the 2023 Shaun Alexander Freshman of the Year award. All right, I want to get into another fun game. We've got, 5 days left until Alabama kicks off against Michigan. And we're going to try to get some Michigan folks on. And I appreciate everybody who's watched us in the last couple of weeks as we've been building up to the Rose Bowl. We've had a lot of different viewers and different channels, whether you're watching us on YouTube, whether you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I appreciate you very, very much. We've gone over a couple of things with Michigan so far. We've had a couple of segments breaking down Michigan so far. I kind of had an epiphany this weekend what I thought that the Michigan game would look like. Do you remember the Arkansas game where Arkansas the first couple series Alabama went 3 and out, and then on the third series Alabama was facing a 3rd and 9 and hit an 87-yard touchdown pass over the top to Kobe Prentice. Great play. Amazing play. It took the roof off of Bryant-Denny Stadium. It woke up the 11 a.m. crowd. It woke up the It was homecoming that day, and Alabama scored on a big play. Other instances this year where we've seen Alabama basically score from absolutely nothing. You've seen it, but you've seen it against Mississippi State. Mississippi State, Jalen Milroe tucks and runs a big touchdown run right up the middle of the field. And you remember him talking about, I slowed up. I didn't, I thought that I had it in the clear and somebody almost caught me. Jermaine Burton with his big day against Texas A&M, you just kind of throw it up to him. But some of that was out of nothing. I think Michigan is good. I've said that before. But I think that you're going to see this game be kind of like pulling teeth from an offensive standpoint from Alabama, where Alabama is stifled, but all of a sudden, boom, you see a big old play, and you're going to see a Jalen Milroe over the top to a Jermaine Burton or to a Kobe Prentice or Isaiah Bod. And I think you're going to see Alabama eventually having enough of those plays, and the defense is going to do its job, because I think the defense is going to have not an easy assignment, but an assignment that plays into their hands with the Michigan offense. Now, we'll say that. So the offense will have enough chances. Look, that Arkansas game was ugly. Arkansas was not a good football team. They're going to keep Sam Pittman. They brought in Bobby Petrino. But in that Arkansas game, they played hard. Alabama wasn't really ready. Alabama ended up scoring on a couple of big plays. They had another, they had 2 more drives that ended up, and then a big field goal from Will Reichert to win, 24-21. Will it be like that for Michigan, 24-21? Maybe so. I think it's going to be kind of played in a phone booth to a degree. I think the game's going to be kind of played in a phone booth, and you're going to be able to see Alabama break out of that phone booth a couple of different times for big play touchdowns, and that's going to be the way that Alabama is able to win the football game. Now, do I think Alabama's better than Michigan? I do, but I think you're going to have Michigan has some ability to, stifle or frustrate the Alabama offense. But when it comes to slowing them down the entire game, I think you're going to be able to get over the top on them a couple of times. We've seen that on film a couple of different times. You've seen some quarterback run action work a couple of times on film. So we'll just see. I think they're going to be – they haven't been tested. We've talked about that before, and we will try to talk about that more as the game gets closer. But as the game gets closer, it made me think about – the last 7 times that Alabama has been in the college football playoff. Alabama's been in the playoff 7 times. This is the 8th. And I wanted to think about the best teams in the playoffs. Where does this team stack up against the other teams, against Coach Saban's other playoff teams? And look, you got 2014, you lost to Ohio State in the first round. You got 2015, you beat Clemson 45-40. 2016, you lost to Clemson 35-31 in the finals. So, 2017, you all remember, 2nd and 26. 2018, you lost to Clemson out. You got drummed, Trevor Lawrence, 44-16. You missed the playoffs a year. 2020, you beat Ohio State in the national championship. And then 2021, you lost to Georgia in the national championship. Missed the playoff last year as well. So this is the 8th time. Where does this team stack up among the 8? I was really thinking about it. I was trying to break it down, and you can obviously chime in on the comments if you want at Joe Gaither 6 on any of all the platforms: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Snapchat, all the social media platforms. It's at Joe Gaither 6. You can tell me that I'm wrong, but we'll go 8-1. We'll go 8-1. Number 8, my number 8 team. I went with the 2014 team, the team that lost to Ohio State in the first round. Ezekiel Elliott went over 200 yards on you with the third-string quarterback, Cardell Jones went crazy. If you would have run the ball a little bit more, Lane Kiffin in that second half, Derrick Henry could have taken you to a win. A little Derrick Henry and Amari Cooper action with Blake Simpson. That team was good. Just didn't have enough juice to get over the hurdle against the eventual national champions in Ohio State. Number 7, I'm going with 2021. You all saw it 2 years ago, and you saw really at the start of this season what the team looked like without Bryce Young, kind of mitigating some of the disasters. Bryce Young took Alabama to an SEC championship and beat Georgia with Jamison Williams and John Mechie, and then unfortunately, you were able to roll over Cincinnati without a real running game. No disrespect to you, Brian Robinson. Brian he worked his tail off. But the 21 team didn't have a great running game because the offensive line wasn't really that great. They waxed Cincinnati because that's what you expect them to do. They boxed Cincinnati in very, very well and bullied them down the field offensively. But when it came to time to play in Georgia again, without Jamison Williams without John Mechie, and then losing Jamison Williams in that game was just too much to overcome. You didn't have the extra wide receiver depth developed through the year. So I put them at 7. Number 6, I'm going with 2018, beating Oklahoma, but then getting absolutely drummed by Trevor Lawrence. I think that team was really, really good. I mean, if you look through that schedule, there was not really any close games on that schedule. It was Tua Tagovailoa throwing to Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs and Devontae Smith and Jalen Watt. They were lighting teams up that year. But really, Clemson just had their number. Clemson's defensive line in that championship game was just too much to defeat, and Trevor Lawrence was, dotted up. You didn't have enough on the outside of Alabama's defense. The Alabama's defense giving up a lot of yards to Justin Ross in that championship game, and that's why I have them at number 6. Number 5, we're going with this year's team. We're putting this year's team at number 5 right now. You don't know what they're going to do in the playoff. You don't know we don't know what they're going to do in 5 days. But I think this year's team can win it all, can beat Michigan. I'm going to pick them to beat Michigan when we do make our official picks. I will go ahead and let that out of the bag. I'm not really sure what my final score is going to be, but I've got this year's team at number 5 because I do think that there's going to be Michigan. And then when they play eventually Texas or Washington, I'm kind of thinking Texas at the moment, but definitely think that Washington and Michael Penix can win that game. It's going to be very, very entertaining. It's going to be a great day of football on the first, watching Alabama and Michigan, and then having Texas Washington right after it. But yeah, I think that they're going to beat Michigan. I think they can beat Texas or Washington. I don't know if they will. This team, not necessarily the most talented team of the 8. I don't think so. But Jalen Milroe is such a unicorn at quarterback. I think that he is. I don't really want to disrespect Jalen Hurts, but kind of souped up Jalen Hurts. He's a better athlete than Jalen Hurts is, in my opinion. Not as good of a thrower, but I do think he's a better reader of the defenses post snaps. And maybe I think that Tommy Rees is putting him in better positions to make better decisions. So you're seeing higher productivity out of Jalen Milroe. I think that this defense is vastly underrated. I don't think they're as good as the 2016 defense. I do think they're probably better than the 17 defense. I think they're probably better than the 2020 offense, but the Alabama offense this year is nowhere close to the 2020 offense. So I put them at number 5. This year's Alabama football team is my 5th best Alabama playoff team in the Nick Saban era of the 8. Now, obviously, they could probably move up with 2 great performances, but I put them at number 5 for now. Number 4, we're going with 2016. This team should have won a national championship. Absolutely should have won a national championship. Lost 35-31 to Clemson. The rematch, the national championship rematch, the pick play. This defense was absolutely insane. How many non-offensive touchdowns were scored from the 2016 defense? Obviously, they beat Washington in a pretty good little beatdown. I mean, they boxed them in. Washington never really threatened them at all. The 2016 offense wasn't necessarily that great. You have Jalen Hurts and Calvin Ridley obviously getting it done. You have Bo Scarborough and Damian Harris. You guys all know that I don't really love me some Damian Harris, but that defense was special. That defense was incredible, honestly, and they deserve a national championship ring. So I ranked them the highest ranked non-national championship winner of the 8 is the 2016 team, the team that lost the Clemson rematch. All right, number 3, 2015. Look, this team was written for dead, and this 2015 team is the team that this 2023 team, current team this year, has been compared to the most. You think back to 2015. We've done it a billion times this year. Oh, who's going to be Alabama's quarterback? Oh, Alabama's quarterback controversy. Jake Coker, Cooper Bateman. Who's going to be the quarterback? Subbing guys in through the early parts of the season. Oh, Jake Coker takes the job in a loss. No, Jalen Milroe didn't earn the job in the loss to Texas, but he certainly earned the job in the win over Ole Miss right after the ugly win against South Florida. I think there's a huge comparison. The 2015 team, obviously, there's no Derrick Henry on the 2023 team, but this running game's no slouch. Jalen Milroe, the combination of Milroe, Jace McClellan, and Roydell Williams, a little bit of Jam Miller as well. The combination of what you can do with the running game. No, it's not Derrick Henry, but it's very versatile. It's very versatile, and Tommy Rees's creativity is very, very strong. I think the defenses are a little bit similar. Obviously, the 15 team was a year away from being the great team that was the 2016 team. There wasn't really that great. There wasn't really a whole lot of receiving threats. Ardarius Stewart, obviously, thank you so much for carrying that axe, carrying that sledgehammer, and being pretty much the wide receiver 1 that year. Calvin Ridley was in the mix as well, but not a whole semblance of a great passing game. I think 2015, I'm going to rank you as the worst of the 3 teams that did win a championship. But, dude, you're number 3 out of 8. You're number 3 out of teams that all made the college football playoff. Number 2 is the 2nd and 2016. Is 2017. Is Tua Tagovailoa to Devontae Smith. Is Najee Harris's freshman year. Is Alex Leatherwood getting subbed in. Evan Neal is what? No, Neal was later. Excuse me. But you had Alex Leatherwood. You hit all the freshmen basically on the field in the 4th quarter against Georgia, bringing you back. And I think the 2017 team was really, really talented. They beat Clemson. Their defense was really, really good. Obviously, offensively, they were better than the 2016 team with the second year of Jalen Hurts. And then you had Tua kind of nipping at his heels the whole time, getting into games and blowouts. I think that 2017 is the second best Alabama playoff team of all time. And number 1, it is the COVID season. I know a lot of people put it with a big old asterisk because of the COVID season, but really the 2020's team was incredible. I have my own feelings about Mac Jones. Obviously, he's benched in New England right now, and I think that's about right, because I think that I have always maintained that he is a subpar quarterback. But his year in 2020 was undeniable. Yes, it was behind the Joe Moore winning offensive line. It was right next to the number 1 Heisman Trophy winner, Devontae Smith, and number 3 Heisman Trophy vote getter in Najee Harris. Najee Harris won the Doak Walker Award as the nation's best running back. Like, literally, that offense was a Ferrari, and Mac Jones did a great job just keeping it on the tracks. And sure, it's always, look, people can say asterisk year, but they beat 10 SEC teams in a row. Really 11 SEC when you include the SEC championship game. And then they obviously handled business over Notre Dame in the Cotton Rose Bowl, the Rose Bowl that was played in Dallas. In Jerry World. They handled business over Notre Dame. You have the Najee Harris hurdle, and then they waxed Ohio State in the national championship game, 52-24. Did I think that the 2020 defense is the best defense that Alabama's ever had? No. But their offense was unstoppable, and the defense was enough to really, make things tough on opposing teams. So when you think about them, you put them in a bracket. That's how I ranked them. I ranked 1, 2020, the national champions, 2, 2017, 3, 2015, 4, 2016, 5, 2023, this year's team. Maybe they move up to 4, maybe they move up to 3. I think I can see them moving all the way up to number 3 or number 2 if they win the national championship this year. Where do you rank this year's team amongst the 8 college football playoff teams that Nick Saban has brought to the playoff thus far? So 5, 2023, 6, 2018, 7, 2021, and 8, 2014. All right, so that's my little game of kind of ranking all 8 playoff teams that have been in the Nick Saban era amongst Alabama. I do think this year's team can get all the way up to 2 or 3. I don't quite see them beating 2020 just because of 2020's unbelievable offense. But maybe, if they wreck Michigan, and then they wreck Texas or Washington, which I think is unlikely in both scenarios. I think Alabama can win both games, but I think it's going to be close. If they wreck them both, though, if they surprise me and go, 17-21 up on either of them and close the door on them at 17 or plus 21, woof, I think they might even move up to number 1, but that would surprise me very, very, very much. Okay, let's get out of here for the day. We're right at about 30 minutes, and we've been having a lot of fun on the holidays, doing a little tighter episodes. But I want to get out of here why talking about the bowls, because there are some SEC teams in bowl action starting tonight. Wednesday, December 27th, you've got the Tax Act Texas Bowl, with Texas A&M is playing Oklahoma State in NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas, right where the national championship is. They're warming it up for you. A&M is a 3.5-point underdog. I'm taking Oklahoma State due to all the opt-outs, due to the transfer portal, and due to all the transition at Texas A&M. But you're going to want to watch it because, look, people are going to make a big deal about bowl games and the SEC's record. We'll look at all the SEC games real quick right here. We'll pick we'll pick Wednesdays and Fridays, and then we'll come back on Friday and pick the rest of the weekends. But look, you've got Texas A&M is playing Oklahoma State, all kinds of turmoil at A&M. Clemson is playing Kentucky, opt-outs on both sides, transfer portal on both sides. Missouri's playing Ohio State. Ohio State has lost a lot of players. So, really, it's hard to call bowl season definitive. It's hard to call bowl season. It's hard to say that bowl season is really a good metric to measure a conference's success. Now, obviously, the SEC hasn't played yet, and I might change my tune if the SEC goes undefeated. Just kidding. No, I won't. I believe that the bowl season has become, in the playoff era, not pointless. I'm not going to go that far. I think that's a little far. I do think it's a bit of more of an exhibition. You take last year's for an example. Alabama played Bryce Young and played Will Anderson. Both guys showed their character, wanted to play. You're seeing a lot of Georgia players opt in to play, the ones who haven't hit the transfer portal. They are playing, it seems like. And so their culture and Alabama's culture is a little bit different. But really, I think a lot of programs are using bowl games to turn the page on next season. Start turning things over. What is it? Tennessee. Boom. Tennessee right now, they're going to play in, they're playing Maryland in the Music City Bowl. No. That's Auburn. Tennessee's playing Iowa, in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. They're playing on New Year's Day as well. They're playing as the appetizer for Alabama. But you just heard the news. Joe Milton earlier today, Tennessee starting quarterback. I'm opting out. I'm preparing for the NFL draft. Well, okay. Josh Heupel says, fine, you just did me a favor, Joe Milton. I don't have to bench you. Now I can play Nico Iamaleava and get next year's season started. You're seeing the same sort of thing at LSU. Jaden Daniels opting out. You're getting next year's season started in January. And I think that has turned into kind of a positive for Bowls. It's made it more intriguing to me for Bowls. I don't know. I'd rather it be a preview of next year rather than a stamp on the previous year. And I guess that probably puts me in the minority of bowl season. But last year when Alabama played with Kansas State, of course, I wanted to win. I wanted Alabama to come up victorious, but I would have rather seen a little Ty Simpson. I would have rather seen a little Jalen Milroe. I would have rather seen some actual high-stakes reps, per se. And I know bowl games aren't necessarily high stakes. They've been a lot of fun this season already, some of the minor bowls that we've been watching through the Christmas holiday. I wouldn't say they're high-stakes reps, but they're higher stakes than practice reps. They're higher stakes than A-Day reps. Look, Alabama this year doesn't have to worry about it. We're all in. Alabama's all in on the Rose Bowl. But you think about Georgia, you think about, look, Florida State's going to be without 16 players. So while the people who are going to wave the SEC flag are going to say, woohoo, Georgia beats Florida State 45-7, and woohoo, they shouldn't have been in the playoff anyways. They're a completely different team. And so the bowl season records, to me, don't matter really at all. Obviously, you kind of have affinity for the SEC, and that's what puts you into the college football playoff, your conference's strength. Thank you for being so strong. I don't really sit here and pull forward the rest of the conference. Like tonight, I'm going to pull for Oklahoma State because just 3 minutes ago, I said that Oklahoma State would win. I want to be right more than the conference looking good. Tonight at 8 o'clock on ESPN, you're going to get Texas A&M kicking off bowl season for the SEC. And we'll see, I guess, a little bit of the start of the new chapter, or I guess the washing out of the old chapter, washing out of the Jimbo Fisher era tonight on ESPN. And that's what I'll be doing this evening as we take in bowl season. I'll be catching up with Katie Wyndham. I'll be catching up with Austin Hannon and Blake Byler here pretty soon. We're going to see how beautiful it is in California. Those three are out there for BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com covering the Rose Bowl. And if Alabama wins, I'll be on the Houston trip. So, I'm supposed to stay neutral. I'm supposed to stay unbiased, but I'd like to go to Houston. So, guys, Alabama, could you take care of business and beat Michigan? Let's talk about the Friday games, and then we will get out of here for the day. We'll come back and readdress them tomorrow. We'll get some Michigan action as we continue to inch closer to the Rose Bowl. Friday at 11 a.m., number 22 Clemson is playing Kentucky in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, Florida. Clemson is a 4-point favorite. Kentucky, you all know they kind of floundered out at the end of the year, and Clemson kind of ended the year on an upsurge. So I'm taking Clemson. They are the favorite. I'll be taking the Clemson Tigers to end the season on a 5-game winning streak, and Dabo can say, we won 9 games this year, and you're ungrateful? You'll be ungrateful. We won 9 games, and we won our bowl game. We won the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. All right, at 7 o'clock on Friday is another fun game, and I'm excited, honestly, about the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic in AT&T Stadium. We need to catch up with somebody that's on the Missouri trip. Maybe Joey Van Zimmeren can come on the show and tell us how the Cotton Bowl is going. Number 9, Missouri is playing number 7, Ohio State, and it's going to be on ESPN at 7 o'clock on Friday. We'll have another 2 shows before that, so we can get into it a little more. Ohio State is a 3-point favorite. I think this is stealing money. I think Missouri is going to beat them fairly handily, maybe 10 points, 10, 13 points, because of all the opt-outs. You don't have the same Ohio. You don't have the quarterback. You don't have Marvin Harrison Jr. Ohio State's been, scattered. They are treating this as a kickstart on next year as well. So I'm taking one SEC team in the first 3 days. We'll get into the Saturday slate later, and we'll talk about Monday, obviously, when it comes around with the Rose Bowl. coming up soon. So look, thank you all so much for watching us today. Thank you for my cousin James joining me on Monday for Christmas. If you didn't catch that episode, it's up there on YouTube. It's up there on all the social media channels at Joe Gaither 6 at BamaCentral. We are at BamaCentral on X. We are at Alabama Crimson Tide on Sports Illustrated on Facebook. We are at BamaCentral SI on Instagram. So follow us on all three of those platforms if you want to keep up with us on BamaCentral.com. Katie Wyndham, Austin Hannon, Blake Byler out there in California doing the Lord's work, out there covering the Crimson Tide in Disneyland. We'll catch up with them this week, and we'll keep it rolling on the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral at BamaCentral.com. Subscribe to the program, Apple Podcast, Amazon, Spotify. Tell a friend about the show. I so much appreciate y'all. I cannot wait for 2024. It's going to be a big year. I've been making some plans. It's going to be a great year. It's going to be a great time. Thanks so much, Wendell Hare, for your kind comment. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the Joe Gaither Show right here